Hello, everyone. Welcome to another informative episode on White David Gardening and Worm Farm. Today, we're going to be just chit chatting about gardening, and so I hope you feel free to take part in the discussion. Okay, so let's see now. What should we discuss? Your farming zone. What zone are you in with your gardening zone are you in? I am in zone 3B. I don't know what the difference is between A and B, if it means that B is warmer, sorry, B is colder than A. I haven't researched that yet. I'm not accustomed to talking about growing zones because in Jamaica we don't talk about growing zones. So I was a bit surprised a few years ago when I was asked about what zone I'm in. Yes, I know they talk about zone when it comes to like residential or commercial areas, but never really give thought to agricultural zones. So, what zone are you in, and where you are? Do they talk about growing zones? So, as I mentioned, my growing zone is 3B. It is pretty cold. Her growing season is very short. Most things have to be started indoors if we are to be able to harvest it, or plants have to be modified in order for them to grow here. So yeah. So, hi, Sian. How are things on your hand? What is the weather like where you are? Oh, hi, Han White. In my region, we are approaching the coldest time of our winter. The third week in January to the end of February is usually the coldest part of winter for us. So at the moment, it's kind of still, it's cold. Hush, Sian, hush. And when you say cold, what is your temperature like where you are? For us, this time of year, we usually have maybe minus 28 or somewhere thereabout. This time around, it is about minus 18. We're having a bit of snow. We had a bit of snow last night, and occasionally it has been snowing on and off all day. We had a snowstorm last week, and they said that we are to expect two more snowstorms this week. So, well, it was more of a windstorm than a snowstorm in my region. So, we're supposed to expect two more storms this week, which is not very common for my region. Usually, we get one snowstorm for the entire winter, or maybe two, but we're expecting three in the space of 2 weeks. But I think that is because it has been so warm. Usually, when it is unusually warm, a storm usually follows. Oh, hi, Hable plant. So let's see. CM says -2 to -4 and feel like -8. Okay. For you, that might be very cold, but for us, that is like kind of warm for this time of year. 6 degrees Celsius as day temperature and around freezing at night. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Oh, hi, Mom. That's not bad. We have like minus 18 in the day now, and overnight would be like in the minus 20s. So let's see. Yeah, it's kind of windy outside at the moment. I don't like this time of year. Thankfully, I don't have to get up and go to work every day anymore. So at least I don't have to be outdoors when that time come around. But I have some work that I need to do outdoors, and I'm just delaying because I'm not looking forward to being out there freezing my poor little fingers off. Anyway, so yes, when does your gardening season begins? I cannot even talk. I need to go back to kindergarten. For us, our growing season starts here sometime about, let's see, around the 24th of May is actually when our average last frost. So anytime after that, we can start planting unless we're planting indoors. So I guess I still have 4 more months before I can start thinking about planting. Oh, around April for you. Okay. Yeah. I'm so anxious for the growing season to start, or at least for the time to get here when I can start my seedlings indoors. Let's see, in late February to March, not much in March. Hmm, is that not more? Oh, but more so in March. I guess that's what you're trying to say. Yeah. Okay, that's nice. I'm jealous. I wish my growing season would start that early. And then sometimes I get so anxious to get started with the planting that I might start planting my things too early. I remember, was it last year? No, it was the year before, 2019. I started growing my tomatoes like 3 months before the growing season gets here. And I had some of them died because the grow lights that I have, they're not big enough to provide enough lights for those big plants. So some of them died. It was just crazy. But anyway, yeah. Okay, you meant to say, but I finally figured it out afterwards. Yeah. So, looking forward to my growing season. I have a few things started. As you know, if you're following my videos, you'd have seen that I have my sweet potatoes started because I was experimenting with them to see if they can grow from skin. And as it turned out, yes, they started from skin. So I have been doing all that I can to preserve those ones because my growing season is about 3 to 4 months, and sweet potatoes take 100 days to 180 days to reach maturity, depending on the variety that you have. I don't know what variety of sweet potatoes I have because it is store-bought potatoes that I'm just growing from skin. So I decided to try and save those that started growing from skin, especially since these potatoes come directly from Jamaica. They're not from the ones that we get here in Saskatchewan. So because of that, and I love that Jamaican variety, so I'm trying to see if I can grow them. I wish I could get a lot more of the varieties that we have out there, but we only seem to get maybe one or two of those varieties. And it's not all the time that they're available. So I'm trying to preserve those plants. I've had them for maybe 2 months or more now, and they're still going. So I'm happy for that. Let's see what Ava Plant says. It used to freeze in April, but last year it was 21 degrees on April 4th and 6th. But after that, the temperature went down to 11 degrees. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, we had something similar last year. March, everybody was excited. Oh, yes, spring is here and we're going to have a early summer because everything was just so warm. The plants, the perennial plants started to grow because it warmed up so much. And then all of a sudden, everything got so cold, and all those perennials, the most of them died. And it was just crazy. A lot of the perennials died. And after that, we end up having a summer that was sometimes hot, sometimes on the colder side. So the peppers and the tomatoes, they really struggled last year because the temperature was just so crazy. Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen this year because so far our winter is behaving similar to how it behaved last year, where up until December, January, we're having -4 temperatures. Occasionally, we might get 0 or 4 degrees above. And whenever it is like that, the winter tends to be longer. So I'm really not looking forward to that aspect of it, which is why I'm so happy that I spent the time this year to build. Oh, hi, Nikki. Yes, I'm so happy that I spent the time to build a few cover for some of my raised beds, so that at least those plants that loves to eat, I'm going to be able to cover them to make sure that they survive and I can actually harvest from them. So let's see. And White says, I sowed a few things indoors last year, but I sowed them way too early, so won't be making that mistake this planting season. Yeah, I guess a lot of us gardeners do that sometimes because we're so eager to get started. It's crazy, but I guess after a while we realize that it's not really worth it because we end up losing some of the plants if we cannot provide enough grow light for them. So how soon can you start growing your seedlings indoors? I know that some plants require more time, so you have to start them pretty early in your growing season. But how early do you start your seedlings indoors? For me, my growing season starts about the third, shortly after the third week in May. So I usually just start my things when I start it at the end of March. It's always too early and the plants don't survive. So I try to start it like the first week in April. And it depends too because some plants might require 10 weeks in advance. So for those plants, then I start those in March, like the second week in March or so. Let's see. And Mike says, well, for my peppers in January and February. Oh, okay. Able say probably in March on the windowsill. I wish I could actually start my seedlings on my windowsill, but my house is oriented east to west. My windows are east to west. I don't get the full sun on my windowsill too. Although it seems sunny, but when you put the plants there, you realize that it is not getting enough sunlight. Let's see. Nikki says March to April. Okay. Yes, me too. Yeah, it's yeah, I can't do anything. I can't plant anything right now. I am let's see, I have maybe four more grow lights that I'm not using, but there are those four are some little tiny ones. So I think maybe inch and a half in diameter, so they won't be able to do much. And all the grow lights that I have growing, I have what, three grow lights that is constantly going now to keep my peppers. So Yeah, I'm just gonna wait until it's pretty close to the growing season to do anything. Let's see, in the past, I would just wait until May and sow directly in the soil. Yes, I used to do that too, but then because the growing season is so short, there are some things that you can direct sow and it is okay, like your cabbage and your lettuce and stuff like that is okay. But for things like your tomatoes, yes, you can start them from seeds, but you're cutting it pretty close because sometimes our winters or sorry, sometimes our fall weather starts as soon as August. It starts to get cold, or late or early September. So if the autumn temperature starts to kick in August or September, then you have to make sure you start some of your seedlings indoors for those plants that require more time. This year I decided to do some winter sowing in jugs. Okay, yes, that is a pretty good idea. Have you ever done that one before, Nikki? Starting them in jugs? I did that when I started my indoor garden not this year, but last over the fall. But they didn't really work out because I wasn't using grow light and I'm not getting enough sunlight on the windowsill. So they got leggy, so I just discontinued with them. Let's see, I will be doing that too for most of the things I will be planting. Okay, let's see. Nikki says, but doing it that way, I learned that it would run out of growing time. Okay. Abel says, I'm lucky because I have a giant south facing window. Even though I get the same amount of sunlight as most of Canada since I'm in the same distance from the equator. Okay. Yeah. I wish I had a south facing windows. Yeah, I've got big windows, but they're not south facing, so I'm not getting the sunlight, which is such a pity. Let's see. Nikki says first time. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I try starting them in jugs. Um, I set up one of my raised bed with cover on it that I can remove whenever I want. The framing is there, but the cover I can remove. And I set it up that way so that so if I'm going to be direct sewing, I can start earlier than my last frost date because I will have the cover on it too. And I'm planning on heating up the soil before the growing season begins. So whenever I'm going to start planting a month before, I'm going to be heating up my soil to make sure that the soil temperature is warm enough when I'm ready to start planting outdoors. And then for that raised bed that I have the cover for, I am going to be when I start my seedlings indoors, as soon as the weather reach warm enough where I can put the plants outdoors in the day and take them back in the night, I'm going to be putting those trays into that raised bed and cover it over so that they can at least get enough sunlight so they won't be leggy. So do you have snow in your territory, in your area at the moment? Yeah, I don't think I need to answer that. Everybody's supposed to know I have lots of snow in my region. Snow usually starts melting sometime in March, and it takes a pretty long time because usually over the course of the winter you're going to have at least 2 feet of snow. And with now when we have snowstorms, some Well, because it is warm, some of it has melted, but then we keep on getting snow. But this year is not bad with snow. We got the major snowstorm, and we've had maybe 3 or 4 snowfall after that, but they're nothing to talk about really. So it's not bad this year. It has been pretty good where snow is concerned, apart from the snowstorm. I don't know what they are, the two storms that we are supposed to be expecting this week. I don't know what they're going to bring, but we'll see how it goes. I just hope it comes with wind and no snow, because I was out there today shoveling and I don't like it. Let's see. I ran out of time this year. So many of my plants like watermelon and corn. So I don't want to take any chances this year. I want to start growing them as soon as possible. Okay. Yeah. Me too. With my melons, I definitely ran out of time. Uh, I had about five, five melon plants, and when the growing season ended, I had about the melons that I had were maybe about the size of my fist. That's as big as they got. Yeah, and then we this last growing season was a bit weird, because the first week in August we had frosts. I have never seen that before in the 10 years I've been here. So yeah, it was a very weird one. So I'm hoping we won't have that this year. Let's see. No, not in London, but other places in Britain. We had a snowstorm a week ago. Oh, okay. And Nikki, you don't have any snow. Fortunate, it means that you'll be able to plant sooner rather than later, eh? Does your ground freeze? Even though you don't have the snow, does your ground freeze? Let's see. We get a little. We get very little. Oh, okay. Bevans, Tramwell. Hey, Susan, have you ever been stung by a bee or a wasp while gardening, mechanical or otherwise? Oh yes, I got stung. I got stung by a wasp last growing season, and it wasn't pretty. Um, they actually decided to go and live underneath my first raised bed, and my raised bed is beside my main garden, so that is a pathway that I constantly have to take. And I was walking by, and all of a sudden there was just this sharp pain in my calf, and I'm like, what's that? I didn't even know that it was a wasp that stung me, even though I knew they were there. It was afterwards that I figured it out, and oh, did it ever! It got swollen and so hard, it remained hard for 3 weeks, that area. Right. But I heard that some wasps like to live in the ground, so I guess that's what was happening. So this year I'm gonna have to find some way to eradicate them, because when I cover my raised bed, I find that they come up through the soil and go into the raised bed, and then as soon as you take the cover off, there they are flying up in my face. So I'm gonna have to find a way to get rid of them. Let's see. And White says, I sowed corn indoors last year and they didn't do well. Okay. I started some indoors last year, but corn does not like to be transplanted. Um, I started some last year indoors, and they kind of struggled while they were indoors, even though I was taking them out to harden them off constantly. And first, when I was hardening them off, I would put them in my little mini greenhouse and harden them a bit. And then I start leaving the little mini greenhouse um, cover partially open so that a little air will circulate. And then eventually I started leaving it fully open. They didn't look so good. I think maybe they looked like they were suffering from nitrogen deficiency. But even when I gave them nitrogen, they were still a bit on the yellowish side. But when I transplanted them outdoors, they took a little while to start recovering. And they weren't too bad, but the ones that I direct sowed did a whole lot better. Corns do not like to be transplanted. And when I am starting corns indoors, I make sure that I use seed blocks because I don't want to have a situation where I have to be removing them from a container, because then you're going to be disturbing the root, and corn is very finicky when you disturb the root. So I start them in seed blocks so that I can just take up the individual plant and place it in the ground. But even so, they still struggled. So I think this year I'm just going to start them directly in the ground. But what I'm going to be doing differently is that, as I mentioned before, I'm going to be heating up the soil before I actually plant. And after I plant them, I'm going to be covering that area to keep it warm until they get a good footing or have good roots. Let's see. Milk carton number one. How big is your garden? What is manageable for one person or man? What is manageable is dependent on each individual, actually. If you are someone who is very active, then half acre, no problem. 1 acre, no problem. 2 acres, no problem. You can manage that quite easily. Depending on how physical you are, it also depends on how much time you have on your hand. My garden, if I'm to combine my raised beds with my main garden, I would say I have about 500 and something square foot, and I don't really have a problem managing that. It's pretty easy, actually. Yeah, but it depends on how much time you have and how physically active you are, physically fit. Okay, let's see. If I had another 30 day, if I had another 30 days, things definitely would have been, things definitely would have had a different outcome. I agree with you. I agree with you, my dear. Just a little bit more is all we would have needed. How long or how short is your growing season, Nikki? Yeah, that is so true. Because most of the time when I plant my things, the ones that I'm not able to harvest, they're pretty close to being able to harvest, but it's just not enough time, which is so sad. Which is why it is so important to start. So start the your seedlings, for those that can be started indoors, you start them early. So this year I'm trying to extend my growing season, and I'm using two methods to lengthen that growing season. So first I'm going to be sowing my starting my seedlings indoors, and I'm going to be covering some of my garden initially to make sure that I have enough warmth for the seedlings. And then towards the end of my growing season, I'm going to be covering my garden so that I can extend the growing season a bit. So, so what I'm going to be doing is, for those things that loves the heat, like peppers and tomatoes, stuff like that. Although tomatoes doesn't like too much heat, but it does not like cold. I'm going to be planting them in raised beds that have covers, and so I can extend the growing season for them. Let's see. And why it says our ground does freezes. Okay. Yeah, no snow, but it freezes. How deep does it freeze? What is your yeah, how deep does your ground, your soil freeze? For me, it can go down as deep as 15 feet. 8, our water table is about 8 feet. But sometimes it's not always, but sometimes it freezes down to 15 feet. So it does take a lot of time, even after everything has melted. It does take a lot of time for the soil to thaw enough for us to be able to plant. Let's see. It says I got one evening slash night of snow this weekend. Okay. Was it a lot of snow? The weather was 2020 weird. I say everything about 2020 seemed to be weird. Yeah. Oh well, what can we do? With all the craziness that is going on, the only option we have is to move along with what's going on, adjust to the new norm. Jack Wilkinson says buttered crab tastes gorgeous when grown from fresh eggs. I'm not sure if I understand that. Okay, so let's see. Nikki says July we had heat and no rain. Then in August we had rain and no heat. Oh my goodness. I can see all those plants bolting with those drastic changes from one to the other. Yeah, it has been a pretty crazy year, but I really don't know because we're all making so much plans what we're going to be doing with our garden, but so much is still dependent on the weather. But the thing is that you still have to plan, even if the outcome is not sure, you still have to plan because you don't want to sit and not make any plan. And then the time come and you would have had a good crop, but because you failed to plan, then nothing happens. But it can be frustrating at times when you're planning and you're doing all this, and then at the end of the day, the weather is so terrible that you don't get to harvest all that you should. But anyway, some is better than none. Ground freezes. Okay, I think this thing jumped ahead on me. Okay, so Nikki says her ground freeze. Okay, no bee stings. Oh, hi, healthy home, Kadisha. Hi, D worms. Hi, Virginia. Okay, so he said no bee sting. I have only been stung by a bee once when I was younger on my finger. Well, that was my first wasp sting, and I had a bee sting about 12 years ago. Yeah, and they were always happy that I've never been stung by a wasp, but they made a nest under my raised bed and one got me. So now I'm gonna have to make a plan to come back at them and make sure that I get them instead of them getting me. And especially since the kids love to go out in the garden, and those little tiny ones walking around, the wasp can get them so easily. So I'm going to have to find a way to get them from underneath my raised beds. Okay, so let's see. Wasps are terrible. They certainly are. And they're not like the bees that can sting you only once. These guys can sting you any amount of time, which is what I don't like about them. So this year I'm going to be making a lot of traps for them and doing whatever it takes to get rid of them. Let's see. I planted my peppers last year and they didn't produce any fruits because of that. So I started sowing them already. Okay. Yeah, I did so too. I started my peppers. I believe I started them shortly before my growing season start and then transplanted them. I didn't have a lot. A lot of most of them did not germinate because I had them on trays and they weren't close to any heat source, and peppers require heat to a lot of heat to germinate. So this time around I'm going to be starting them similar to how I started my Scotch bonnet peppers. So I'm going to be putting them close to my heat vent and use lights to help them germinate faster. I'm not going to be starting the rest of peppers. I was only just testing my Scotch bonnet peppers to see if they will germinate, because I always have difficulty getting them to germinate when I'm starting them indoors. So because I saw that those five germinated, I sowed five seeds and they all germinated. So I'm doing everything I can to preserve them. But as for the rest of peppers, I won't be starting them until maybe the first week in March, because I'm definitely going to have to use grow lights to keep them until the end of May to transplant them. Let's see. It doesn't freeze too deeply here. Okay, well, that's good. That's good. I don't know the answer to that question. Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, mine, it's terrible when the ground freezes up to 8 feet or more, and you are so anxious to get started, and then the soil is all cold and frozen. It is frustrating, but what can we do? That is why I'm going to be heating up my soil this year to try and quicken the process. Let's see. I think he meant buttercorn. Oh, okay. Buttercorn. Let's see. Yeah. It, is that a particular type of corn, or is it corn that he had butter to? Is your chat feed lagging? Um, I don't know. It seemed to be okay on my end, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's happening on your end. It was frustrating. Hush, Nikki. Evil says, I've been stung, one by a wasp and one by a bee and two by a bumblebee. Three of those times were in one day when I walked barefoot in the field. Whoa, that's crazy. It seemed as if they targeted you. Maybe you had some pollens on you, or maybe you just seemed delicious to them. Hush, I'm just joking around, but I mean, all three in one day. That's crazy. That must have been a very painful experience. Worm, knock on wood. But I was stung by a bee when I was a young child, only once in my life. Let's hope it stays that way, my dear. Let's hope it stays that way. Oh, hi, Helpy. Yeah, it's not going too bad. I know a woman who was stung by a bee and became allergic to the cold. Whoa, no joke. She had to move to a warmer state. I've never heard of that. That is crazy. Wow. LP, did she get superpowers? Yeah, she's now able to fly. Uh, Nikki says it's fine. Unfortunately, no, because I don't think she ate it the cold prior. Oh, and White says your chat feed is okay. Okay, good. Yes, I would like to know too. Has anyone grown cubes of butter summer squash? I'm not sure that I understand that question, but if anybody on the live can answer that question, it would be good. Yeah, I don't know. So when you're starting your seedlings indoor, how many of you have to use grow lights for your seedlings? Oh yes, there's one thing. Let's see, LP says it's a variety I'm thinking of growing. It's kind of look like yellow zucchini. Okay. I'm planning on using grow lights. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. Could you repeat the question? Oh, I'm asking if you have to use grow lights when you're starting your seedlings where you are, or do you get enough sunlight from your windowsill? I definitely have to use grow light. It is not an option for me not to use it because my plants not only if it was the case where they were just getting leggy, then it would not be too bad. But they get very leggy, and in addition to them getting very leggy, they eventually die because there's just not enough light. So I definitely have to use grow lights. That is why one of the reasons why I'm not starting my plants too early either. And anything that has enough time to grow outdoors, I'm not going to be starting them indoors because it is too expensive to use all those grow lights for how long I'm gonna have to use them for. Let's see. Russell says, I grew butter summer squash last year. Worms enjoyed them. Okay. Did you grow them directly for the worms or did you grow them to use in the kitchen and then the worms enjoy what's left? Oh no, I don't use any. Okay. How fortunate for you that you don't have to use it. I bet. But did you? Tape, tape, or done gun. Okay. So welcome everyone that I haven't welcomed to the live yet. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Let's see. God bless Trump and defend the White House. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. I don't know how to do that on the live. If it was another part of my discussion, then I would know how to. If it was a video, then fine, but I don't know how to block anybody from the live. Let's say, what do you do with leggy seedlings? If your seedlings is leggy, then you have to find, you either have to give it grow light or move it to a location where it can get enough sunlight, and you want to strengthen the stem or the stalk of the plant by either using your fingertip to just gently brush over the top of the touch, gently brush the plant back and forth, just gently because you don't want to damage the plant. Or you can turn on a fan on the very lowest speed and keep it a good distance from the plant so that it won't have any damaging effect on them, and that will help to strengthen them. Yes, so why is it fun, dear mama? What's fun? Um for me, I'm speaking to you now, Tape. I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and for me the only government that I support is Jehovah's Kingdom. All the other governments, I am obedient to them as long as the laws that they create does not conflict with God's laws, then I will be obedient to them because God says I have to be obedient to them. But as for politics, I don't discuss politics at all because I don't support politics. I don't vote. I don't choose a side and say I want this one to win or that one to win, because at the end of the day, none of them can get rid of sickness, death, old age, pain, or anything like that. So when it comes to politics, I just don't get involved at all. Jehovah is my king, and that is how it is going to remain. Okay, so let's see. That is not what this chat is about. Go away. Why block instead of chat and learn from each other? We can chat and learn from each other, no problem, but it won't be about politics. As Han White says, the channel is focused on gardening and worm farming, so that is what we will be discussing. I respect you so much. Your answer was so holy. I love you. Okay, thank you. White David Gardening, thank you. I know I can't grow plants in my windowsill, but I tried to get away with it, and now I've got some leggy seedlings. I didn't know about strengthening them. Yes, so you can either gently shake the plant, or you can use a fan. Um, Depending on how much seedlings you have, it might not be practical to use your finger to aggregate the plants, but I mean, the fan is a good option, especially if you have a lot of seedlings. LP. And white recipes, I'm going to absorb some of her calmness. We are going to riot. Please pray for us, dear mama. There is no need for rioting. We can all exist peacefully. Is it harmful to bury the stem in the dirt a bit more? For some plants, it is. I'm not sure which. The only one that I am certain of that you can bury deeply is the tomato without any problem, because wherever wherever the soil touches your tomato, it will root. So for tomatoes, you can bury them deeply, but as for other plants, I am not certain. You need to block that person. I don't know how to, and you just have to find a way to ignore if it is offending you. I really don't know how to do so. Here, Russell says, okay, I don't entertain ERG. Yeah. When I do tomatoes, I put the light right on top of the seedlings. Move up light slowly as it grows. It does stop the stretching. Yes, if you're using grow light, having your light 2 inches, it's recommended 2 inches above your plants, and you keep it 2 inches above your plant, irrespective of the height of your plant, and that help with the legginess of the plants. Let's see, they are cold, hardy greens like tatsoi, purslane, mash or mache, and miner's lettuce. I've never heard of some of these things like that mash or mache or the tat soy, but irrespective of what plant it is, I don't know if you can. I don't know enough about those plants to tell you if you can bury the stem deeper to protect them, because some plants, if you bury the stem deeper, it can cause the plant to rot. So your best bet is using a fan and, if where possible, a grow light. My channel is not for preaching. You can, if you want to learn more about our teachings, then you can visit jw.org. All the information you need is there. But the channel is focusing on gardening and worm farming, and that is what it is focusing on. I don't, this channel is intended to become monetized, and spiritual things should not be monetized. Therefore, I don't use my channel for such discussion. Okay, so let's see. Move your pointer to the right of the line. There is 3 dots pop up. Let's see. Click them. Okay, let's see. Where am I at? Okay, I'm past that. Okay, Russell just blocked. Okay. Um, I never use grow lights, just my windowsill. Yes, my dear, you are very fortunate that you can just use your windowsill. Let's see. LP says, Russell, I am shaking my head at myself. LOL. I saw that option myself and thought I couldn't do it for someone else. Chat. Oh my, it's Monday. Stop entertaining him, just ignore him or block him by clicking on his name. Three dots. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Miss Ann White, you can use your windowsill. That is awesome. I think I remember now you mentioned growing in windowsill in another chat. Okay. Yes, our kitchen window is great. Oh, fantastic. For someone like me, I definitely need a windowsill because my growing season is so short and grow lights can be so expensive to run. Having a windowsill would be very ideal. Let's see. I don't have my grow area set up as yet. I hope to this weekend. I'd like to start my peppers and some flowers in February. Let's see. It must be congrats to you. Russell, have you or do you use LED grow lights? I have one and it kind of burned some of my orchids because it is too close. Okay. I replaced my 4 foot fluorescents with LEDs. I've never used the fluorescent grow light. Um, do you have fluorescent grow light that is the blue light, or is it just the regular grow light? Oh yes, there is something I wanted to ask. Let's see. Russell says, and it doesn't burn the seedlings to be that close. Interesting. When I keep my grow lights 2 inches from my plants, it doesn't burn them. So I don't know. I don't know about fluorescent grow lights. I've never used those. I use daylight or 5000K plus. Okay. Um, have any of you ever grown kohlrabi? What does it taste like? I see a lot of people growing kohlrabi this year, and some say it tastes good. But what does it taste like? What is there any other vegetable that the taste can be compared to? Let's see. LP says I have some 4 footers that are regular grow light bulbs, but my LED is red and blue. It allows options to use one or both. Okay. No light burn. I have never. Okay, you've never grown kohlrabi. Yeah. Nope, never grown it. What about eating it? Have you ever bought it and eat it? I'd like to know what it tastes like. I grew kohlrabi, but it was not successful because it didn't get enough light and grew leggy. I harvested leaves for smoothie. They are thick like kale. Okay. So so you can use the leaf as vegetable and you can eat the fruit, for lack of a better word. What about swede? What does swede taste like? I know you grow swede and white. So what does it taste like? Does it taste like turnip? Does it kind of look like turnip? Does it has a turnip taste? What texture does it have? And he says, I hope so because I ate it. You're hoping after you've eaten it. I grow beet leaves for smoothie. Yeah. Let's see. I grew Colorado. Oh, yeah, I read that one already. I'm going to grow it again this year. The kohlrabi. Okay. It also says I use purple too, but after the first transplant after the first transplant before the garden. Okay. Yes, I do too. Okay, you grow the beet for smoothie as well. I didn't know that the leaves was actually edible until last year for the beet. So I used it once after that, but I didn't have a lot because the rabbits ate down most of my beet this last year. So we'll see what happened this year. Might have to make a fencing around that little raised bed that I grow my beet in. But now that I'm going to be companion planting, some of it is going to be going in the high raised bed. Rabbits won't be able to reach it. Let's see. LP says, would you not recommend using that light for new seedlings, the purple? I grow everything in stages. It's also okay. It tastes like sweet, so not really turnip, but similar taste. Okay. Okay. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. And like last year, I had a baby rabbit hanging out in my raised beds too, so I put up a fence around them. Yeah, I had a rabbit, and I think it was maybe two of them, but one in particular just wouldn't leave my garden. It's constantly there. It always go over to my sister-in-law next door, and sometimes it goes to the neighbor in front, and they would chase it away, so it would come over to my place, and it would always hide under some stack of wood that I have outside, and then it would eat my beet. And then one day I went out and found it dead. I was so sad. I don't know what happened to it, so I gave it a little funeral. But it was too late for the beet at that point in time because it was pretty close to the end of the growing season. So it's the first time I planted beet, so I didn't really get much from it, but I'm gonna be attempting that again. We'll see how it goes where the rabbits are concerned. Um, so it is not sweet, LP. It is Swede. Swede. Yes, that's what I was asking about. Swede. I meant to say it has a sweet taste. Okay. Yeah, I figure. So can you use it if it has a sweet taste? I don't think I would want to use it in my soup. What do you use the Swede for? Because you sent me some seeds and white, but I don't really know anything about the that vegetable because I've only ever seen it in the stores, but I've never. used it or tasted it. So, what do you use it for? Oh no, good for you. You have a good heart. At least you know it hit good while it was alive. Yeah, I guess so. Let's see. Ah, okay, thanks. Okay, no worries. So, have any of you finished planning your garden yet? In soup, curries, or chips? Oh, okay. I was thinking maybe soup because it's kind of like turnip, and that's the only thing I do with turnip. But then because you say it has a sweet taste, does that sweet taste affect your soup? Because I know, like, if you put sweet potatoes in your soup, it tends to make our plantain, it ripe plantain, it tends to make your soup a bit sweet. So does the sweet kind of sweeten your soup as well? No, I have not. Have you? No, my dear, I'm far, far, far from it. I'm not finished planning yet. Um, if you had seen it, yes, I think you saw my last video um, about that planning your garden stuff. That is as far as I got in terms of deciding what is going to be companion, what can be companion planted together, but as to deciding what I'm going to be planting where, I have only have maybe three of my raised beds decided what I'm going to plant where. The rest I am nowhere near. And I keep saying, okay, maybe I should put this here and put that there, and then I keep changing. So it's kind of hard to finally decide, but I'm gonna have to get it done pretty soon by March at least because we're gonna be starting. I'm going to be starting my stuff that can be started indoors, and I'm going to be doing succession planting with those. So I'm not going to be planting everything that I want to grow for this growing season all at once. So, say for example, I'm going to be planting 6 tomatoes. I want to plant maybe 2 tomato plants this week. Another 2 weeks, I plant another two, and another 2 weeks, I plant the other two. So I don't want to plant everything all at once because when it's time to harvest, you're going to be harvesting everything all at once, and then you run the risk of things getting spoiled because I don't can and I don't dehydrate. So, in order to ensure that I can harvest on a continuous basis, I'm going to be succession planting. So because of that, I need to have the garden properly planned out by March so that I can know exactly what I am doing. Let's see, I'm right. I'm currently doing a prepping video on it. Okay, nice. I'll be looking forward to that. Let's see. LP says we will have to come over and see how you're doing on white recipes. Okay. No, it doesn't affect the taste. Okay, and the sweet doesn't affect the taste of the soup. Okay, that's pretty good then. At least I know what to do with it now when I grow it. And as it is the first time I'm going to be growing it, I don't think I'm going to be growing a lot of it, just in case. I'll just plant out whatever you give me, whatever seeds you give me. Okay, Russell says, went to the Dollar Tree to get seeds. Still have to wait a couple of weeks for them to come in. Wow. Think they are 2 weeks behind this year. Interesting. Wow. Yeah, because like, with the pandemic, there are quite a few things happening now. So there are those who have lost their jobs, so they're at home, so they are turning to gardening, and then there are those who are turning to gardening more because they don't know what the future gonna hold in terms of Will food supply be readily available? And then there are those who always used to garden, but now they're thinking of growing more because of the pandemic. So seeds can are becoming a bit short, but it is interesting that you're still able to get seeds at this time of year. We Unless you go directly to a gardening supply, um, a greenhouse or whatever it may be called. Yes, unless you go directly to a greenhouse to get seeds here, nowhere else will have seeds available in my province. You would have to wait until after Valentine Day, then they start putting out seeds and gardening stuff. So anytime after Valentine Day, they might start putting out, but definitely in March, seeds will be available. Thankfully, I have most of the seeds that I need. I just need a few more seeds. So unfortunately, the places where I buy seeds from, the greenhouses that I buy seeds from, don't have the seeds that I need now. So I'm gonna have to try and source it from somewhere else. We'll see how that goes. So, what is the biggest biggest challenge that you have when you're planning your garden? For me, the biggest challenge that I have is because I want to plant so many different things. I don't have enough space to plant all the things that I want to plant. And then because I'm going to be companion planting, I'm going to be doing far more companion planting than before. So now I have to figure out, because I did a video where I show what can be companion planted together. But even though I have that list of what can be planted together, I still have to figure out what I'm going to be putting with what. Because, for example, tomatoes can be grown with lettuce and carrots. At the same time, lettuce and carrots can be grown with something else. So, how do I decide what it is that I'm going to be growing it with? So, these are some of the challenges that I am facing as I am planning my garden, because I have to plan it in the way that I can get the most out of the garden. And I have to be thinking about, okay, if I'm companion planting two or three plants together, what is the sun requirement for this one and that one? Um, how tall will one plant grow in comparison to the other? So all of this have to be taken into consideration. So it's kind of a bit of a challenge deciding what I'm going to do just yet. I haven't paid. Let's see. LP says, I need to take note from your companion planting videos. It's kind of intimidating planning. I agree. It really can be intimidating. I need to check our local stores. Okay. LP says, White Davy, I want to succession plant as well. It's an excellent idea, but makes planning even trickier. Yeah, it can be, but at the end of the day, it is well worth it, because so many times we've harvested things and there we have so much that you have to either give it away, which is no problem, but if you want to keep most of what you have, then it's best to plant them so that everything is not mature all at once. Let's see. Me too, Russell. But we haven't got Dollar Tree here in UK. Okay. LP says, I'm also trying to figure out how to plan for spring plants that will be harvested before summer plants. Okay. Yes, there is so much to be considered. We don't really have anything though here in our province that you can be harvesting in spring, as far as I know anyway. Um, Everything of our growing season is just too short, so you don't really have anything that you can plant early and harvest very early, apart from maybe things like lettuce and stuff like that that takes only a few weeks, but there's not much that you can plant and harvest in spring. Well, unless you're growing it indoors, because we only have a few weeks of spring that you can plant in, and by the time you plant is only time for the plants to germinate, not time enough to be harvesting anything. Let's see what Alvin says. Hey, pretty lady, how are you? I think there are quite a few pretty ladies on the show. If you're talking about me, then I am okay. How about you? Let's see. Thank you, White Davy. Gotta run. Take care. Okay, my dear, you take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I think I'm running behind, eh? Some supermarkets sell seeds here and all our gardening centers. Okay, yeah, some supermarkets sell seeds here as well, but they haven't put out any seeds yet, at least not the supermarkets that I've been to. I try to plant densely, but I don't want to grow too dense. A real balance. Yeah, that is so vital because it can encourage plant disease, and your plants can be fighting for the sunlight and for space. So at the end of the day, you might not harvest as much as you want to if you overcrowd the garden. What's your favorite thing to grow? I was gonna ask that question too. Um, I love growing carrots and tomatoes and cucumbers. So if I was to choose five vegetables to grow, it would be my Scotch bonnet peppers, it would be my carrots, my tomatoes, my cucumbers, and my corns. How about you guys? What five vegetables would you choose if you were to choose a top five? LP says, for instance, kales, lettuce, beets, cold loving plants that can come out before I plant tomatoes and peppers. I will put them in their place. Okay. You love to grow corns. Yes. Love to grow corns because I love to eat corns. I don't like the corns that we get here though. I don't like sweet corns. I like corns that are on the starchier side, but I don't seem to have much of that here. LB says, White David, do you bother not planting the same things all in the same area? For example, all tomatoes together. Um, let's see, how do I answer that question now? Well, last year and my previous years when I'm planting, I plant based on what space is available and what I'm planting. Now, sometimes I find that I have tomato plants just growing from that I did not plant. And so I tend to transplant them wherever I have space in my garden. But yes, I do plant my things, similar plants together. So if, say, for example, I'm growing Roma tomato and I'm growing beefsteak tomato, I would grow all of them in the same area, but then I would keep the Roma tomato to itself and I would keep the beefsteak to itself. Um, the one thing that I'm going to be doing this year, though, when it comes to things like the members of the cabbage family, the brassica family, I'm not going to be putting all of them in the same location. And the reason for that is because they're all prone to the same type of pests. So if you put them all together, then they're all going to be affected. So I'm going to be putting them in different locations. I'm also going to be interplanting pest repelling plants among them so that that will help to control the pest as well. But plants that are similar or of the same family, you don't want to put them together. So, for example, tomato and peppers, they're of the same family. So you wouldn't want to plant your tomatoes and your peppers together because they are prone to the same type of pests. So, yeah, let's see. And White says, I'm always growing kale. Uh, I would love to grow peppers. Okay, I do the same. Okay. LP says, I don't know if I have a favorite yet. Tomatoes are fun because they are so rewarding. Yes, I think that is practically everybody who plants. The first thing they will go to is tomato because tomatoes are really not that difficult to take care of until the pests come, of course. Let's see. I like beetroot and squash and melon as well. I was so excited about my squash and melon. Well, I tried the melon last year, but I tried it the year before, but where it didn't have enough sunlight, and melon requires a lot of sunlight, so they didn't do well. Last year, the growing season ended before I could get anything off them. So this year, I'm going to be trying with them again, and this time I'm going to be trying 5 different types of melons. Let's see. LP says, White Davy, that is what I was wondering about. Spreading them how to distract pests. That thinking has made my planning more difficult. It is so easy when you just simply plant and not worrying about anything. So much easier, but then the benefits can be worth all the challenges that we go through when we spend the time to actually plan out the garden. So it will be pretty interesting this year to see what happens because usually I would plant peas and beans with corns, and I will do lettuce, carrots, and tomatoes together. But I don't do a lot of interplanting. But this year I'm going to be doing a lot of that. So I just can't wait to see what the end result will actually be. Let's see. LP says kale is great. I grew baby kale blend this year. I'll grow more. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like growing kale. It's a bit hardy. I like the fact that you can keep it in your fridge for an extended period of time. Unlike unlike lettuces, you can freeze the kale, but like your lettuce, they tend to get a bit soggy when you defrost them. So yeah, so I prefer kale in that sense. Let's see, LP says 5 different melons. Wow, that's great. Do you make any special recipes with your melon or just eat them fresh? You hear me saying I'm going to grow 5 melon. You know the funny thing? I am not a fan of melon. In fact, I hardly ever eat melon but my husband and my kids love melons, so I'm going to be growing it for them. It's not that I don't like the melon, but for some reason, if I eat it, I can't keep it down, so I don't bother with it. But for the sake of the rest of the family, I'll be growing it. The only melon that I can eat without a problem, and I still don't eat a lot of it, is one that they call Santa melon. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. I've never seen it prior to this year. Okay. Um, yeah, and yes, we do use the melons to make melon juice or just eat it as it is or put it in a salad. Let's see. LP says, have you seen the Farmer's Almanac garden planning software? They offer a 7-day free trial. It's pretty cool. So then, no, I've never seen it. But if they're offering a 7-day free trial, get all your information organized as quickly as you can, and then just use that 7 days to plan your garden. It will make it so much easier for you, and then you don't have to purchase the software. Ah, I'm crazy, I know. Let's see. Cheers to interplanting. I will be interplanting this year too, if it is the Lord's will. Yeah. I love the fact that it saves space and it enhances the flavor of your food. And in addition to that, it help your plants where pests are concerned. But like me with my tiny little garden and needing a lot of space, I really love that point about interplanting. Let's see. LP says, White David, maybe you'll find a variety of melon you like. That's too bad it doesn't sit right with you. I haven't heard of that melon. Okay. And White says, I can't keep down watermelon. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. When I was in Jamaica, the melon wasn't a problem for me, but since I got here, I notice it is a problem. So I don't know. Maybe it's old age. I don't know. Let's see. LP says, Oh, you can't either. Interesting. Yes, we're of the same DNA, so I guess maybe that's why. LP says, Not so crazy. That makes perfect sense. That was my plan, but now I'm behind. I might have a day left. Oh, okay. Well, hurry up and get on it. It would be nice to get all the benefits from it without having to pay for it. Okay, I think we have been at it for a pretty long time. I didn't even realize that's how the time was going. Let's see what what's the most intimidating thing you're going to plan? Intimidating thing that I'm going to plan. I don't know. My peppers. If there was anything intimidating, I think it would be my melons and my peppers because I don't know how they're going to do, if they're going to do well. Because my peppers I've been struggling with for about 3 years now. Okay, prior to that, I've never really tried to grow peppers. I was told by a friend who lives here for many decades that growing peppers here, like sweet pepper, she said, is not worth it because of the fuel that you get from the plant. But she grows cayenne. I think she grows either cayenne or chili. I don't remember which one. but that does pretty well. So I've never really been interested in growing those peppers. I'm just interested in my Scotch bonnet peppers and my sweet peppers. But because she said that when you plant your sweet peppers here, you get maybe one, two, or three. If I'm going to be spending so much water and nutrients and energy to take care of a plant and only get three peppers from it, then I don't really see where that is worth it. I have to calculate the value of my time and the resources that I have to expend. So I wasn't really interested in growing sweet peppers, but I want to try with it to see if maybe, I don't know, I've never really spoken to anyone who have grown sweet peppers in the area to see how much they get from it. But I would like to see for myself rather than just taking someone else's word for it. But yeah, if there was anything that would be intimidating, it would be melons and peppers because with my short growing season, it is a challenge to get those to produce. Let's see. I ask a question I can't answer. LOL. I am more nervous about planting a bigger garden. My peppers didn't grow very well last year. My broccoli was attacked by cabbage moth. Hmm. Mine too, my dear. My cabbage were attacked, and my broccoli. I attempted to grow broccoli for the first time last year, and close to the end of the growing season, they finally started producing broccoli, and then the weather just changed drastically and everything bolted. So that was a complete waste. Well, almost a complete waste. I just turned the leaves into vegetables after that. So, yeah, we'll see how this year goes with the peppers and the members of the brassica family. This year, I hope I can keep them down with row covers and BT spray since I want to grow cabbage, broccoli, and other brassicas. Yeah, that too, and mulching around your plants. When you're growing these brassicas and the cutworms so love to get to them, use diatomaceous earth. Excuse me, works very well for these what do you call them now? Not cutworms, for the cabbage moth and stuff like that. The diatomaceous earth really does work because man, they decimated my cabbage this year. I didn't even know what they were because I've never really had any experience with them. But this year is the first year that I've actually tried to grow any member of the brassica family since I've been in this country. So I didn't have any experience with them, but they did. And then I had Japanese beetle. Those little guys, oh my goodness, I had a few Chinese cabbage and oh, I was looking at a sift when they were finished with it. Yeah. So this year I'm gonna have to do so much more because I really like to grow my Chinese cabbage, especially my Chinese cabbage. So I have to make sure that I do everything that I can to control those pests. Okay, so we've been at it for a long while. So if there's no other comment or question, then I'm going to be saying good night. CLP says, oh, I've heard good things about BT spray. The Japanese beetle are around my yard, but they didn't seem to cause me trouble. Fingers crossed, I wanted to grow Chinese cabbage too. Yeah, the Chinese cabbage have now become my favorite cabbage. I'd like to grow quite a bit of it. Okay. Um, Not familiar with the BT spray, but I don't really want to be using any commercial spray, organic or otherwise. I like to have my own stuff because then I know exactly what is going on my plants. So yeah, I'm gonna look it up anyway, just to be familiar with it. But I like to use organic fertilizers, organic pest controls that I create or that occur naturally. I don't want to buy any that might have things in it that I don't want. Okay, so I'm gonna say good night. Okay, good night, Han White. Thank you all for being a part of the live. It was fun. Let's see. It's a bacteria that you spray on the leaves when the caterpillars eat the leaves. It kills them. Okay, nice. Very nice. I don't want to use an organic product either. Yeah. Okay, good night, LP. Thank you all for being here, and I will see you on Friday. All being well.